Hi, welcome to Reach Career Mentoring's interview workshops. This is segment 3, and we've got Jill Day from the Area Director of Human Resources from US Foods here to present for us. Jill, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Jennifer. It's so good to be back together with all of you. Thank you for making additional time to come back this week and join us for segment 3. Quick refresh. Segment 1 was all about researching the company and making sure you know who they are and what their cultural beliefs or their values are. What's their vision? What products do they sell? Really understand who they are and how you can fit into that organization by bringing your exceptional skills and experience. And then segment 2 was all about opening up the conversation, introducing yourself, and understanding new ways in which to carry yourself through the resume and introduce yourself without hitting every single thing. So if you are just not joining us for the first time for this segment, highly recommend that you go into the other segments that you've been sent and really go back and refresh and spend at least 30 to 40 minutes on each of those just to refresh on the content. This training's been broken into 4 different segments intentionally. And today is segment 3, where we're going to go through interviewing skills and behavior-based questions. And then next week, we'll give you a little bit of insight into what that's going to look like towards the end of this call. So thank you again for being here. Let's jump right in and start the next part of the interview process. And this is really around the interview questions. In segment 2, one of the homework pieces was to begin to list and categorize some of your achievements, really focusing in on what are the great things you've done that you bring to this team. I want to remind you, when you're interviewing, it has less to do with what they can do for you and everything about what you can do for them. So keep that in mind as you start to identify your achievements and get ready for these questions. So what are behavioral-based questions? That's what we're going to review today. I'm going to share a few examples, and then we'll give you some actual answers that you can use, and then some guides to help you prepare. So let's go ahead and jump in. Behavior-based questions are really built on past experience. What have I done in the past? How did I do that well? And how does that answer to the question really tell this new hiring manager what I can do for them, how I can really shine in this role? Remember, in this process, you're working hard to separate yourself from every other candidate in the pool. So you'll recognize behavior-based questions because they typically start with things like, tell me about a time, or give me an example of when, or describe a situation where. This style of interview questions really helps the manager hear how your past performance helps predict what you'll do in the future. So again, pro tip, get a library of accomplishments with specific metrics and results. And then when you get into this next segment, as you'll see, you'll have categories of questions that will present to you, and you'll match that with your accomplishments. And we'll keep talking about this as we move through today's segment. Next slide. So the STAR method is how you're going to answer these questions. So we've already described for you what behavior-based interviewing looks like, but your answers are more important than anything else. We want you to know that 99% of companies are using a STAR method and want you to break down the answers to your question in this way. This is really, really important. Just like behavior-based questions, they want to understand what the situation was. That doesn't mean they want you to give them 20 minutes worth of situation. They want you to kind of set up the stage, and then they want you to say, hey, here's the goal that we were trying to accomplish. And the most important, and where you'll spend all of your time answering, is really on the actions and on the results. You'll see here in the slide, this is not the time for you to sound like you're part of a huge team. It's really, really important that you learn how to share examples that really speak to who you are and what you have done. This is an I message, not a we message. And then be prepared for your results, 1 to 2 sentences where you're sharing measurable positive outcomes, takeaways, everything that matters to that hiring manager. So key tip, that behavioral question, the answer is going to be the STAR method, and your action should be 60% of your story, focusing on what you personally did. It's okay if you're a part of a team, but make sure they know exactly what your part was and how you aided in the success of a team. Avoid using we and talk about you. Focus on those high impact, relevant results rather than just duties. Don't be monotone like, well, I opened up my laptop and I did these steps, right? You want to say, I did this great thing, and here's the steps I took, and here's our results. In the next few pages, we're going to give you some examples of both behavior-based questions and a STAR method answer for you to help guide you so you can plug and play your accomplishments into these templates on these slides and make sure that as you show your enthusiasm about what you got to do and allow you to express the excitement around your accomplishments and sharing with that hiring manager, that interviewing team, a natural, well-engaged flow of your past experience. Make sure you're reading the room and that you have everybody's attention. So let's get into some examples here. Here's a behavioral-based question. Tell me about a time you faced a difficult problem at work. The situation, really brief, right? We're not going to go into who the client was or the project. All they need to know is there was a major client project that got stalled due to a vendor technical failure. The goal was that you had to resolve the technical issue to meet the Friday deadline, or we would lose the contract. This is where the action comes in. So you've really given them, hey, client is going to go walking if we don't fix this. And my job is to resolve the technical issue by Friday, or we lose the contract. So lots of pressure. So here are the things that I did. I bypassed the vendor support line and directly contacted their technical lead. I collaborated with them to implement a temporary workaround, and then I organized my team for a late night session to finalize that project. At the end of the day, because of that workaround, we were able to meet the deadline, maintain the client trust, and I created a contingency plan for future projects. See kind of how they break this down, right? Very simple. So here's another example. I love this one. You're going to tell lots of great stories about all the wonderful things you've done, but be prepared to share the negative. A hiring manager is going to want to know that you're aware that mistakes happen, and he's going to want to know how you've handled those mistakes. And she's going to want to hear how you plan to never have that mistake happen again. So here's the situation. Again, you're going to give an example of a time you failed to achieve a goal. Here's the situation. I was managing a marketing campaign with a 10% conversion goal. I needed to ensure the campaign launched on time with very high engagement. So I really focused too much time on the creative aspect and did not adequately test the landing page, leading to only a 5% conversion rate. The result was the campaign failed to reach the target. I analyzed the data, I learned the importance of testing, and implemented a mandatory Q&A process for all future campaigns, which improved conversion rates in subsequent projects. This is a really great example of what you've learned and what you're putting into place so that mistake never happens again. But don't forget, it's good to be vulnerable. I just hired somebody yesterday who was terminated, but the way they expressed to me their termination and what they've learned from that and how they've set themselves up for success going forward removes any anxiety I might have about them because they were transparent, they were specific, and most of all, like it is here in this result, they focused on what they did to ensure that didn't happen again. Here's another example for you. Describe a time you had to manage a conflict within a team. The situation was a coworker that I had difficulties or a different approach to a project, and it was leading to significant delays. I had to align our methods and meet that deadline. So to do that, I scheduled a private meeting with that person to listen to their perspective. I presented data on why my approach was more efficient and compromised by using their structure, but my data analysis as the method. So we really showed how we could collaborate together. And the result was we finished that project on time and actually improved our professional relationship leading to better collaboration in the future. I'm really proud of that story. So now that you've kind of had some examples, let's move into the common category questions. We've just given you some examples. You don't know what questions might be asked. That's what this next segment is for. So what we've done here for you is we've broken down each of the next slides into categories of questions. We've provided you with a couple of examples of these questions and what the employer is looking for. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your accomplishments and you're going to come up with answers using the STAR method and make sure that you're delivering what the employer is looking for in your answer. And this is going to become part of your practice. If you've been with me in segments 1 and 2, you know I will say it's research and practice. That's what sets you apart. Don't ever try to do this from the night before or the minute before your interview. Be prepared. So here's some common category questions. Teamwork and collaboration. Tell me about a time you worked on a group project, or describe a conflict you had with a coworker and how you handled it. What the employer is looking for is strong communication, conflict resolution, empathy, and good collaboration. So think about that as you start to pull your answers together. Another couple of categories here are around problem solving and critical thinking. Folks, there's no one in the United States hiring for people who don't know how to critically think. It is important at every level of the job. So think about those accomplishments where you had a tough problem to solve, or you had to think quickly on your feet and come up with an answer. What they want to know about is, how resourceful are you? How do you use your analytical skills? How do you stay calm under pressure? And don't forget, resourcefulness might be going to someone who's more analytical than you. So think about that, right? Show your collaboration, your teamwork, your critical thinking, so they get a good picture of how you would handle problem solving and critical thinking. The next category is really around innovative decisions and ownership. So tell me about a time you took initiative at work. Describe a project you led from start to finish. So self-starters who take action, not just direction. There's probably no job in America where they don't need you to think on your feet and think for yourself, because they're not available 100% of the time. So make sure that you have some good accomplishments and experiences in your past where you've been able to do this. If you don't know the answers to some of these questions, go to your coworker, somebody you trust, somebody you used to work with, or a friend, and have them help you come up with what you've done. And then another set of category questions might be adaptability and learning. Really, managers and employers really want to know that you've got resilience, flexibility, and a growth mindset, meaning that you're not afraid to learn something new, whether it's technology or a new process. And how did you adapt to that? My old manager used to call it flex adaptability, or adapt to flexibility. He would kind of run the words together. But I remember thinking of that all the time, because we're in a world where everything changes, and demonstrating how adaptable and flexible you are and how quickly you learn is going to be a secret sauce that other candidates aren't going to be prepared like you are. Let's go to the next slide. And the last group of questions is time management and prioritization. So these questions here might be asked, they might not, but be ready for category questions such as this. And here's what I want to say. What they're looking for isn't, oh yeah, I manage my calendar, I have to prioritize all the time. What they're looking for is, so my family thinks I'm odd. I use Excel spreadsheets to organize all of my projects, and I have all of the due dates and who I'm depending on for all of those things. And I have them ranked in order of importance by due date and by contribution to the company. I also make sure I put tasks in my calendar so that I have different ways to be alerted of my deadlines so that I don't forget things. That's something I learned early on. That's how you answer a time management and prioritization question. Again, go back to how you normally work and fold that into the STAR method, but don't talk about your duties. Talk about what you as a person do naturally to keep on top of things, and make sure that they understand in your answer, that you have the ability to prioritize, that you know how to stay organized, and you know how to meet deadlines under pressure. Our final slide here is in this area is really, I'm sorry, final two slides here are really, they go together. If you're a person who has a different ability or disability, you are going to be asked inappropriate questions. Just get ready for it. And so we really want to take some time on this right here. People may mean well, but that doesn't mean that they're not asking questions that they shouldn't. That might make you feel uncomfortable. So practice these. Throw a couple of them out to a friend and practice your response. On the right-hand side here, you want to make sure that no matter what you're asked, you stay calm, you establish your boundaries, and you pivot the conversation back to your independence and professional capabilities. On the next slide, we're going to answer these inappropriate questions with some examples so that you've got something that you might use along the way. You can put these in your own voice, but these are excellent examples that Wah and Jennifer put together. So they said, how do you get to work? It's really not a job question that they're going to ask every candidate. So just know that up front. It's not fair, but it will happen. Okay, so just keep this in mind. Not everything that happens is fair and correct, but how do you answer it to show the professional you are? That's going to be key. So I have reliable transportation and an excellent track record of arriving on time. You could even reach out to my former manager and they would tell you that I am a person who really cares about being on time and being present at work. All of those things matter in your story. What about medical appointments? Do you have a lot of those? Again, very inappropriate question, but a good professional response is my personal schedule will not impact my performance. Tell me a little bit more about the typical daily workflow and attendance expectations of the team. See what you've done there? You've taken this wildly inappropriate question, you've pivoted back to the job and to the company. You want to show that you understand that every company has an attendance policy. What's that manager's expectation for that attendance? What does that look like for them? I see you have to have a personal attendant. Are they going to do your work? Not an appropriate question. While I have a personal attendant, my personal support for daily tasks, I complete all of my professional assignments and collaborative work completely on my own. And I have references that can speak to that. Like you can add whatever you want to that makes this you, but these are some great guides. What about that you're in a wheelchair and have to be pushed around? I move around independently using my chair. Is there a specific aspect of the office layout or travel requirements we should review together? Again, you're pivoting it back to the job itself and what's required. Now, you've already done some of your research to find out that this company is open to people with varying abilities. They're ADA compliant with their doors. They've got language written on their website inviting people into their organization intentionally. So if they're asking these kinds of questions, I would be surprised. But the key here is be prepared. Don't act alarmed. Don't be angry. Be very calm. Calm is like the greatest gift you can give somebody when they're asking a question that's inappropriate. Take a deep breath and show them how much better you are at this than they are. Be calm, be professional. So now we come to the activity. What kind of HR person doesn't give you homework, right? So I'd really encourage you to go back and review sessions 1 and 2. Spend 30 to 40 minutes just reviewing it. But now you're going to take that information and you've probably have already applied for a job and you're ready for that first interview. Build yourself a mock interview. Identify a response based on the STAR method for each of the categories we've given you in the previous slides. This should be based on your accomplishments, the things you've learned, and various projects that you've done. Whether or not they're all professional or work related is insignificant. You can show somebody that you have the skills and aptitude to do that job and set yourself apart by coming up with the creative examples of what you've been able to do as a volunteer in your free time in school as well as in the workplace. Then build your answers, like write them out. I usually start with excuse me, usually start with a spreadsheet of my accomplishments, the questions I think they're going to ask me based on the job itself, and then I build my answers. Key point here, make sure you're adding in a couple of examples for the job you're applying for. So if they're looking for a biomedical technician to work in a laboratory, make sure that you've got some examples ready of how you've worked in the lab and what you did in that lab that are all surrounded by the STAR method with great examples of actions and result. Build out your answers with what you've learned today and practice. Practice with a friend or mentor or trusted advisor. And bonus points to do this on video. I hate being on camera, absolutely hate it. I totally get what you're saying. But I've learned so much about myself when I have done this and really analyzed how I show up on camera. It helps me with my background, the colors of clothing that I wear. It helps me with my hands because I like to use my hands when I talk. Really is such a great learning opportunity. Even if it's just a phone interview, you want to know that they can hear the smile and the confidence and the preparedness that you've put into getting ready for that interview. Then plan on how you handle inappropriate questions and review those on camera. Review them with a friend and a trusted partner. Really get comfortable with inappropriate questions so that you're prepared. You can show that calm, you can show that dignified professional manner, and you can put their concerns aside. Practice is everything. Now, before we go, I want to say something. You may not have the opportunity to have that job. Maybe you don't get the job. My goal here is that you know that you're so prepared for that interview that you did your very best. You presented the very best self that you are, that you were wildly prepared over and above other people. And that in of itself is a success. Not every interview is going to end in a job offer. But the more you do the interviews and you prepare to the level we've suggested, I promise you, you're going to incur this level of confidence in yourself and your ability. People are going to be drawn to you, and the right company is going to want to hire you. So make sure that you're ready. So when you walk out of that door, you know I did my very best, and I'm really proud of how I put myself in front of that team. And if they don't choose me, it wasn't meant to be. Okay. Next week, we're going to talk about the logistics of the interview, the thank you notes, the decline letters, anything that you do post offer up to and including salary. We're going to talk about those segments in section 4. We look forward to having you here back next Tuesday. Thanks again for being here. Let's turn it over to Q&A.
Thank you, Jill. Amazing presentation. Thank you very much. We normally run our Q&A at the end of all our sessions, and they've been really robust on previous talks. Unfortunately, we do not record those sessions because we want to maintain the privacy of the participants. But if you would like to join our Q&A, they're really, really good. And you can join us Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific on the Zoom links that you get. Okay, thank you very much.
See you all next week. Thank you.